Marky, the right rev of speed, joins me. I want to begin, I guess, throwing a bit of a curveball to start with, but it's a legitimate question because there was a story coming out, and I knew this, that Tom Brady has come on the market the last few years. It's a soft shell, not a hard shell, so it supposedly better absorbs the impact and reduces concussion. Tom Brady was still using an old-fashioned helmet before it was outlawed by the NFL just the other day. That was primarily just out there to prevent skull fracture, like they originally were for. And it reminded me of like when I was playing baseball very badly, and sometimes, yeah, I mean, say an old style catcher's mask I preferred, even if it didn't have a throat protector. I just could see out of it better. It seemed like to me sight was the best way to prevent injury, than something that might have a more protection but not as much of a sight line that I hadn't realized how to use. And it reminded me when NASCAR changed the Hans device after the Dale Earnhardt tragedy, and they really started ramping up, not that the cars weren't obviously safer than what they were on the road, but they really started ramping up the safety measures. I just was curious, when the Hans device came in, can you remember anyone who kind of rebelled back to it just because they felt it was that? Remember anything like that ever happening, Jerry Bonkowski?
Oh yeah, I remember it like yesterday. I mean, it was the number one opponent as opposed to proponent was Tony Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was adamant that he did not want to wear it. It was very constricting. It was limited in its movement, and I mean, he understood the safety element of the Hans device, but he just did not want to wear it. But as it turns out, a situation like this, NASCAR is obviously going to win. They implemented the rule.
I guess when I was looking at that with Tom Brady, you're like sort of saying, what can possibly break up the Patriots' dynasty? Certainly Tony Stewart was able to succeed with that helmet and such. Okay, a big race in Richmond before a week off for Truex Jr. Defeating Joey Logano. And I guess one of the things that, last year, of course, in the Cup race, the finale, it was Logano, sort of the underdog. One race versus a championship. So how much of a validation can it be? But Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch had dominated so much. How big is this for Truex, especially to win the way he did win?
Well, I think it was just more of a matter of time than anything else with Martin Truex Jr. I mean, remember, he came over to Joe from, even though there was a partnership between JGR and Furniture Row for the last several years. Still, you have to get reacquainted, I guess, or acquainted, if you will, with the team moving back to Charlotte and from Denver. So many new people to get to know. I mean, certainly still has Cole Kern as his crew chief, but there were a lot of changes though that Martin Truex Jr. had to overcome it. Not to making this the only win of the season. I think he could very easily win 3 or 4 races. I think he's starting to really hit his stride with JGR, and going forward, I think he's going to continue to do it. So, although we've been saying a lot about Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, I think we're going to start saying a lot more about Martin Truex Jr. going forward as well, too.
We're talking to Jerry Bonkowski, the right rev of speed, and you mentioned that he changed over to Joe Gibbs. Is that why Joe Gibbs has been so dominant this year? It's just that, we improved our driver stock. Or is there something else with the cars?
Well, they have arguably one of the best out there, no question about that. Among the best personnel, not only for each individual team, but overall, collectively, the entire organization. So, they have great sponsorship. They have a lot of attention. They have a lot of fans. So their success really is not that much of a surprise. But I will say this, though, Mark. We've talked about this a few times already in the last several weeks. Is that with essentially what some people might call an outdated race car, because the Camry, versus the Ford Mustang or the Chevy Camaro, you would think that the Toyotas would be way down the list, and Ford and Chevy would be way higher. And in fact, I read a stat this morning that kind of surprised me. The
Could it all be that, as I mentioned, I mean, they're still using a sedan, not a pony car, and I guess a pony car technically is a sedan, but it's smaller supposedly. Although I will say, I'm out there at Bristol among all the cars and all that, and no, it didn't feel like you were walking around. Question, but is it now, especially on the short tracks, maybe safe to say that that is an advantage for Toyota, the size?
Not really, because for the most part, I mean, cars are still fairly similar with the Ford and the Chevy. But that being said, history with the Camry than Ford has had with the Mustangs or Chevy has had it with the Cherokee.
Okay.
So I think that as I said a moment ago, I think that the JGR and Toyota are very happy sticking with the tried and true, and the tried and true keeps on delivering for them. So the old saying goes, if it isn't fixed, or if it isn't broken, why try to fix it?
Which is what Tony Stewart was saying about the Honda, and they had to remind him about some of the injury. And say it did break. I mean, yeah, the 2001 Daytona 500, Tony, and all this. We're talking to Jerry Bonkowski. Kevin Harvick kept. What is it about? I mean, how difficult is it to keep cars on the?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, looking at the way things, intense. Excuse me, sorry. See the intense scrutiny that NASCAR is giving the team. But on the flip side, and it's funny, we should talk about this because this is one of the questions we're going to have in our teams, done the changes. To me, it's real simple. The crew chiefs are they're playing games. And they, instead of, going out and just do Fontana, where nobody will or make a time. Continue to, again, like I say, it's my opinion, but the worst going to come down, change the format.
The whole night race we've talked about. Well, for Bristol, how do you think it worked for Richmond this weekend?
I thought it was great. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I mean, I did. Or maybe a Monday night race or something like that. I mean, Marky, you go back about almost as long as I do. You probably remember when
1970, but I do know the story.
And there was so much controversy. People would success and try their own either a Monday night race that during from anywhere between February and September, so they've got plenty of time to run some of the night races.
That matter, Fort Worth or certainly Indianapolis. I mean, that's midweek, but Sue and all this. I also like to point out, by the way, in the old days of the NFL, like